Hello and welcome to Enchanted Rose Costumes. My name is Marika and today I'll be showing you how I made this cap and fichu. Also, stay tuned to the end of the video as I have a giveaway announcement. I hope you enjoy. The cap pattern I used is from the American Duchess Guide to 18th Century Dressmaking. I began by enlarging the pattern from the book and cutting out my pieces, which included the caul, the band, and the ruffle. I began by marking the center on the caul. I will make a note that I did make my caul larger than the pattern because I have a 23-inch head and I find most hat patterns are very small on me. I also marked the center of the band as it makes it easier for construction later on. To begin the construction of the cap, I first waxed my threads to help prevent tangles of the thread, and then began hemming my ruffle. The stitch I used on my ruffle is the rolled hem. Now if you want a more in-depth tutorial on cap construction, I definitely recommend you check out Amber Welch from The Lady of the Wilderness. She posted a video on cap construction, or I should say 3 videos on cap construction last February on her Facebook page, and I found them extremely helpful when I was constructing my cap. I will post links to those videos down below if you are interested. Also, if after watching this video you decide cap making is not your forte, she is also the proprietress of Virgil's Fine Goods, and she makes custom caps that are absolutely gorgeous. And as a side note, I was not paid to say this, I just want to help promote small businesses in the costuming world. With the hem finished on the first side, I then continued on to the second side. Now you'll notice that because I cut a slight curve into my hem, I did not start it off with a rolled hem for the second time. Instead, I folded over the seam allowance and stitched that down. And this is because I did not want the bias of the curve to be wonky, and this way I can control it. So I finished the curve and then went back and rolled that hem, and then I continued along and finished rolling the rest of the hem. For an elegant touch, I trimmed the edge of the ruffle with a fine lace that I attached using a small running stitch. Setting the ruffle aside, I moved on to hemming the band. I began by turning up the edges at 1/4 inch and basting as close to the folded edge as I could. Once I'd finished basting, I then went back and folded that hem in half and then used a quick whip stitch to secure it in place, covering the raw edges. And then I repeated these steps on all these sides of the band. Moving on to the caul, I basted up the bottom edge a 1/4 inch. Then, using an awl, I made a hole just above the basting at the center back, and whipped around the edges of the hole to create an eyelet. I then pulled 2 cords through the eyelet and secured them on the inside of the caul. Ideally, I would have used a linen tape or cotton tape or candle wicking, but unfortunately I couldn't find any, and so instead I used cording, and because of that I had to knot the ends so they would not unravel. I then folded up the bottom edge of the caul once again, and used a quick fine whip stitch to secure the hem in place, taking care not to catch the cording. Using a long milliner's needle, I finished the remaining edge of the caul with a whipped rolled hem. This is done by finely rolling the hem and then whipping around it, and in doing so I'm able to hem and gather at the same time. And with all the pieces prepped and hemmed, it was time to start putting them together. Lining up my ruffle marks to the band, I pinned it down and began pleating. Now I could have used a ruffle instead of a pleat, but the inspiration photos that I was going off of for my cap had a pleat instead of a ruffle. And as you can see here, I did not measure out my pleats, I just eyeballed them all. Once I had finished pleating the entire ruffle, I then finger pressed all the pleats down and removed the pins. Since I'm using a cotton voile, the pleats stayed in place quite nicely. I'm not gonna lie, the first time I started pulling the pins out, it was kinda nerve-wracking. But after seeing that all the pleats were still relatively in place, I did breathe a sigh of relief. And just to make sure that everything did line up again, I marked the center front of the band and the ruffle. And then I began whipping everything in place. Now each time I came to a pleat, I stopped and moved the pleat back into the position it should be in, and then just continued whipping. And I continued whipping all the way around until the ruffle was attached to the band. I then lined up the center mark of the caul to the band and the side pieces, making sure that they were even and pulling the gathers tighter if needed. I then whipped the caul to the band, making sure each whip stitch went over the whip gathers on the caul. At this point, the base of the cap was complete, but I wanted to share how I added my ribbon from my inspiration photos. Now this would have been a lot easier if I had a silk ribbon and not a polyester one, because then I could have pressed a curve into it, because let me tell you, it is not easy to put a straight ribbon on a curved cap. So because of that, my ribbon does not lie completely flat, which is unfortunate, and I think next time I would probably use the inspiration from the third photo and use puffs instead of a flat ribbon. But hey, you probably know as well as I that we learn something new from every project. To finish off the top of the cap, I created a faux double bow. The ribbons I used were 7 and 8 inches long, and I just layered them on top to create the double bow effect. And once the faux bow looked how I wanted it, I attached it to the top of my cap. And this also covered the join in my ribbon seam. Moving on to the fichu, I cut a 40-inch square of cotton voile and then cut that from corner to corner, leaving me with a triangle. I began by cutting a 3.5-inch slit down the center of the long side for the neck opening. The slit allows the fabric at the back of the neck to sit nicely without bunching. Next, I basted up the edge of the slit 1/4 of an inch, slowly getting narrower as I reached the center. And repeated it in reverse on the other side. And using the same technique I used on the cap, I folded the basted edge in half and then whipped it in place. Moving on to the short edge of the fichu, I finished it with a quick rolled hem. I will say that after sewing the cap and the fichu, I discovered that by anchoring my work into a pillow, not only was I not hunching over, my stitches were much tidier and my tension was much nicer, and I was able to sew much faster. I hope this is enough close-up shots for everyone who's been asking in the comments. With that edge done, it is time to move back to the long edge of the fichu. Now, because this edge is cut on a bias, I am not able to roll it because otherwise it'll pull the bias out of whack, resulting in a very wonky hem. So to keep the hem as straight as possible, I folded up the raw edge 1/4 of an inch and used a running stitch as close as I could to the folded edge. And once I'd completed that, I went back to the beginning and folded the edge over once again and basted that in place with very tiny whip stitches. And here's my very sad attempt at 18th century hair. Needless to say, I am really looking forward to the 18th Century Beauty book by American Duchess that is coming out this summer, cause this girl needs all the help she can get. Thankfully, my cap covers up most of my mistakes. Now with the cap on and adjusted, it is time to secure it in place. And it is my understanding that they were secured with none other than straight pins. Now this is a lot easier than it sounds, and once you get good practice, it's actually not painful. What I did is I put it through the edge of the cap and then wove it through my hair, weaving in and out through the hair and the cap. And this way it just actually kind of pins it down and it actually stays, which is really cool. And you can see from my test here that this cap is not going anywhere. And because I love how much this hat turned out, I had to feature it again. The fichu is very simple to put on and can be worn over top or underneath the gown, depending on the look that is desired. I hope you've enjoyed my final construction video for my Robe Francaise Sewing Adventure. I am very happy with this little confection and how it turned out. Now if you stuck with me this far, you'll remember from the beginning that I mentioned I was doing a giveaway. I am going to be giving away this fichu. I have two of them because I actually had to film this video twice because iMovie decided to update and I lost all my footage. So I have my fichu that I'm keeping and then the fichu from the video that I will be giving away. Now, if you want to enter the giveaway, all you have to do is subscribe to my channel and leave a comment below telling me what your favorite video was from this series. This is an international giveaway because this is small enough to ship in the mail to, I think, pretty much anywhere. I will be announcing the winner of the giveaway in my live video in February of 2019, and so you have until then to enter the giveaway. If you're new to my channel and you like what you saw today, just click the subscribe button. I post new videos once to twice a month. Also, if you liked today's video, please let me know in the comments and hit the thumbs up button, as it really helps my videos get out there. Thank you so much for stopping by today. Hope to see you in my next video. Bye!